Ooh.
Why are you going, ooh?
No, I didn't go, ooh. I went, ooh.
No, you did go, ugh.
No, I went, ugh.
Tommy Boyd on BBC Southern Counties Radio.
Evening.
Hello.
08459570057. No great thanks to Bob Staunton for what I thought was a priggish, ill-informed, dumb piece of broadcasting this evening, and if that's developing into a feud between him and me, bring it on, Bob, that's what I say. 08459570057. We've got a call.
We have, yes. Bill from Hoves on the line.
Okay, Bill, good evening, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tommy. Good evening, my friend, and how are you?
Fine, thanks, how are you?
I've got two comments. One about that Bob Staunton.
Yeah?
I'm really cheesed off with him now.
Why is that?
One, he was saying that he wants to take over another hour of your programme. And two, he was saying he wanted to flatten you out.
Flatten me out?
Yeah, he wanted to fight with you. But then he said he's only joking. I don't like it.
You don't like violence?
Well, no, didn't like him saying that about you, Tom. You're good, mate. I've followed you around since LBC.
There.
I'm a great big fan of yours.
Well, he's a know-nothing, isn't he, Bob?
Yeah.
Rubbish broadcast.
You want to take him off. He's really bringing a bad name to the BBC.
I'll pass on your comments. Thank you very much indeed for that, Bill. Everybody, every single person listening, when you say the C word, the F word, knows exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
So they've said the word to themselves in their brain.
So if it offended them,
well,
if you said the whole word, then it should offend them in the same way, really.
Exactly my point. Exactly my point.
Yeah.
Precisely my
point. Does it offend you?
No.
Does it offend me?
Nothing offends me. I mean, genuine unkindness and inhumanity.
Exactly.
Casual cruelty.
Yeah,
the
but
casual
a word.
cruelty of the ignorant racist, the ignorant sexist, you know.
Yeah.
The ignorant ageist.
Yeah.
That is offend the right word. That makes me angry. But words don't bother me.
No.
And I believe that if you legitimise these words, and by the way, it's important for older people listening to remember that it was their generation that popularised these words, and they gave them to the younger generation. And I think it really makes me cross when a lot of older people go on about the bad language used by the youth of today, because it was the older generation who invented, groomed, and promulgated these words and handed them down to the younger generation, okay, who have never invented a single swear word. Have they?
No.
No. So the younger generation haven't invented a single... If the younger generation were going around inventing swear words, all right, then older people would have an argument against them. I think it's an absolute disgrace. Every time you walk past the one stop at 10 o'clock at night, there's a gang of youths there who are going, daffodils! And it's appalling.
Yes.
And I'm so upset, because when I was a young person, daffodils was something beautiful, but now we all know what it refers to. Tom, could you tell me if you think a guy's relationship with his girlfriend will last if he's having a secret friendship with another girl? I won't say your name, but no, it won't. And why should it? Have 2 or 3 girls on the side, if that's what you want your life to be. This programme sucks. Possibly. Although I have the odd scuffle on air with listeners, the occasional idiot caller, I'm afraid I call an idiot because they are idiots. Why is it that if somebody is an idiot, you can't say, I think you're an idiot? And then people complain, and I don't get into trouble, but, you know, people want me to get into trouble. Because what I don't see is right in phone-in radio or in life in general is treating absolutely everybody as if they're the same, because we're not.
No.
And if I like someone, I'll say so. If I don't like someone, I'll give them a hard time. I'll test their argument. And then what really upsets people, I think, is that they find out that the people who I test turn out to have no argument. Just a bunch of prejudices, half of them. That's what I think. There you are.
Tell me this, though. Could you handle being in a relationship which wasn't monogamous? Do you think that you would actually be able to deal with being with someone who you knew was sleeping with somebody else?
It would depend on who she wanted to sleep with.
Why would that make a difference?
Oh, what, my wife and Britney Spears?
Oh,
are you kidding
please.
me?
Well, the old male fantasy.
No, well,
okay, she wants to sleep with another man.
Very old-fashioned of you to assume that my wife would want to sleep with another man. Very old-fashioned of you. You see, we're very modern people in Chichester.
Well, no, but actually, I do think it's a very male thing. So basically, you wouldn't mind if your wife was unfaithful with you, to you with a woman.
No.
But if she slept with another man, it would be a different story.
No, I'd only be concerned about the performance side of it, but I'm big enough not to bother about things like that. When I say I'm big enough,
What
I mean...
if Britney Spears is better in bed than
when
you?
I say if Britney Spears is better in bed than me...
Yeah. What if your wife sleeps with Britney and then decides, well, this is much better?
No man would regard a woman as being in any way, and this is an old-fashioned thing, this is men at their worst, but this is simply true. In this day and age, no man would yet regard a woman as being a sexual threat to his partner, another woman. In fact, we'd probably want to take photographs. Yes, I did have a girlfriend once who asked my permission if she could go to bed with another girl.
What did you say?
Well, I sort of went, no, well, okay. And then she said, would I watch? She was kind of, hey, this was the 70s. You know what they were like then. But it didn't happen. And I always wondered, I was pleased it didn't happen, because it's complicated. It's like finding out you're gay. I wouldn't go, oh my God, you know, I've got to tell friends and family. I'd go, oh, what a nuisance. That is so complicated being gay compared to being heterosexual.
Yeah.
And I think ditto, if your girlfriend said, could she sleep with another girl?
Oh, yeah.
And would you watch? Then it's complicated.
All kinds of problems, yeah.
Oh, you're going to work yourself up into a tiz starting on the Wednesday, aren't you? Thinking,
who do you look at more, your girlfriend or the other one?
All of that. When
you can imagine afterwards, I saw you, Tommy, paying more attention to her than me. You know, all of that.
Was it good for you? Well,
yeah.
You know.
No.
It's complicated.
Very.
And we don't like complications.
No.
Do we?
An easy life.
Someone signs himself Bob Bobbington, may or may not be a real name. He says, I would like to make it known that the woman who called in last weekend and named you as the Antichrist has caused great amusement to me and my crew. You are clearly not as hard as me, and I bet I could beat you in any argument or drink you under the table. Nah. It's lovely. You know, the Americans have given us so many wonderful phrases. Well, I'm looking at some of the emails that are coming in from America at the moment about the Star Trek debate.
Oh, really?
Sad bastard is one, for example. Lovely American phrase. Hey, guys, if you're just tuned into this show and you're listening in the United States, find out what the show's all about before you start shooting off, you know, firing at us, shooting at us. You know, we ain't Fallujah here, okay? We can fight back, so watch it, okay? Listen to the show, find out how intelligent, articulate and sensible we are on this side of the herring pond, and then, if you've got the nerve, give us a call. We'll pay for the phone, you know? But hold off the insults, United States of America, because like a lot of things, we do that better than you as well. What's going on this evening? There's the residue of our explanation of why Star Trek is a danger to world peace.
Yes.
And I'm sticking to my guns on that one. I really believe that it's given too many American people who have the power to vote in the world's most powerful man, see global politics and American foreign policy in terms of an episode of Star Trek. That's my point. And I also believe that Star Trek shows too many influences of some sort of white supremacist group, particularly the early episodes, for comfort, and I can prove it. So I'm going to quite happily stick to my guns on that one. Now, here's one that I think is from an email that I think is from the United States, and it reads, my wife and I are Star Trek fans in Arizona who are new to the internet. I was sent a CD of your Star Trek show and your internet address, and I have to say that you're a sad bastard, it says. Very rich and powerful argument, United States of America. You need to do a little bit better than that. I dare say you can, but, you know, try. Marla Trowbridge has emailed the show, and she says, you ignorant, arrogant, small-minded Brit. I've been advising people not to call in and participate on any of your shows so that you do not get publicity and ratings. I am a bubbly, outgoing fan of Star Trek. God, you sound like a Lonely Hearts woman. I'm a bubbly, outgoing fan of Star Trek, would like to meet, similar with good sense of humour. I'm a bubbly, outgoing fan of Star Trek who owns my own club. Who owns my own club and watches it only as a hobby. Get a life. I got a life, mate, Marla, and it involved Star Trek a bit when I was 14. Okay? I mean, if you're really trying to tell me that you are a grown-up, complete adult and you watch Star Trek, I would say that you haven't got a life. You're living somebody else's life. Look this word up, woman. I assume you're a woman. Not many men call themselves bubbly, although we know what some of you Yanks are like. Ooh. easy pop there. She's got a loud voice, you can hear her on air, and she's 2 rooms away. I'm talking about my girl. Who owns my own club and watches it only as a hobby. How else would you watch Star Trek? 08459 570057. If anybody can tell me how you would watch Star Trek apart from as a hobby. I don't know, how did America get to be the world's superpower? Lady Sam has emailed again. Do you think you are audacious and fresh taking on Star Trek fans? Nothing you do is fresh and new. Oh, that's rubbish. You ain't got nothing like this in the United States, woman. Own up. You tell me a show, you tell me you've got a radio show that's anywhere near as bright and as creative and as modern and as fresh and as 21st century as this. All your talk show hosts in America are dumbos. Absolute jug ears. They really are. She says, nothing you do is fresh and new, and I refuse to take part in any of your mocking of the Star Trek fan base for fun. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is that if you use your intelligence as I have, you will notice that there are some inexplicable themes in Star Trek. I would refer you to the episode called Patterns of Force, in which they arrive at a planet which is ruled by Nazis. And these Nazis have turned the planet round from being a planet where there was chaos and poverty and malnutrition. The Nazis turned the planet round. And the man who plays the Führer in this episode of Star Trek is double dealt by his number 2, who drugs him and puts him on television to say, let's go and invade another planet. This Führer didn't want to do that. It was his cronies who made him do it. Now, what's the message there? What's the message there? Come on, you get genuinely interested in something you claim to be interested in. Watch it with a perceptive eye, woman. That Star Trek is grooming a significant number of primarily young American men into believing that that is how the world is. Are there people who are simplistic enough to believe that? Absolutely. Absolutely. Star Trek was invented by a man who used to work with the CIA. A man who spent several years as a police sergeant with the Los Angeles Police Department. These organizations are not known for their liberal, free thinking. They are known for their authoritarian, sometimes quasi-totalitarian approach to politics and people. I'd like a Star Trek fan to tell me why there are so many Ks in the keywords in Star Trek. It amuses me that the company that put on the first Star Trek episodes had a good working relationship with a cigarette manufacturer who is rumoured to be, although I don't believe the rumours to be true, who is rumoured to be enjoying a working relationship with the Ku Klux Klan. It's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But I'd like a Star Trek fan, particularly the ones who consider that they're intelligent and articulate, to try the argument on for size. Take a couple of emails. Samantha Draymond, this is the American babe, I'm just teasing here, who is lovely and watches Star Trek as a hobby. She says, the Nazi episode, I mentioned an episode of Star Trek in which they come across a planet which is ruled by Nazis who do good works. She says, that Nazi episode is one of the least popular in Star Trek lore. Yeah, but it's still there. You know, an American is somebody who calls a spade an omni-operational redeployment, an omni-operational Earth redeployment device. She says, I consider it non-canonical and not part of the Star Trek series of episodes. Well, it just is, mate. Plus, it was metaphorical. Roddenberry, that's the guy who invented Star Trek, was saying that they were much worse than our Nazi Germany, and network censors negated the show, negated showing the more extreme violence. Eat your words. Read out a couple of emails. One on Star Trek from Robert Duncan. It says, KKK and Roddenberry in league. Get a, he uses the F word, life. Got a life, mate, and a bloody good argument, too. An argument that you can't, you fella, and no Star Trek fan, can actually deal with. Amala Trowbridge says, first of all, bubbly does not necessarily mean fat.
What was this?
A woman who rang and said that she was a bubbly Star Trek fan. And I didn't say she was fat, I said she was probably just a bit airheady, because bubbly means a bit airheady, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
It does. You wouldn't call Condoleezza Rice bubbly, would you? Who's bubbly? Are you bubbly then?
Well, I'm sure people have described me as bubbly in the past,
What's the worst compliment you've ever received?
Oh, the worst compliment.
Somebody once said I was zany. Gabrielle Rutherford has emailed. Oh, this is extremely rude. She's using the F word. She's saying you F word, bony, A word, B word. First Star Trek, now Elvis. I grew up in Memphis and will tell you this. If you ever come here, prepare for bloodshed. Not a threat, a warning about extremists that will have your head man. Well, listen, fella, I'm not as fast as I used to be, but there's nobody living in Memphis who could catch me because, you know, you're all going to be 23 stone. And you don't know how to have a fight in America. You know how to send your boys off to go and have a fight, but pathetic. I'm from Hounslow. Anonymous has emailed. It's another one of these anonymous ones, but you know the full name of the...
no.
Shall I embarrass them? It says, "Oh my God, you sadistic," then F word. "Have to warn you that I am, F word, kicking your ass in my head right now. Listening in Kentucky, you English C word." Didn't know they used that in America. "Remember, we kicked your ass back into the English waters." No, you didn't, Julian Graham, and I'm not sure there is anybody in America called Julian, so this is probably a fictional email, but the Americans did not throw the British out of America in 17... what's its name? Because the British Army was German, and the American Army was English.
I remember you telling me this before.
Yes, it's a fact, it's a fact. George III had to hire 30,000 German mercenaries to go and try and defend British rule in the United States. And the American Army of Independence was almost entirely staffed by Englishmen. So it was actually the English who kicked the Germans out of America. But you try telling that to any American, and they won't have it, because they don't actually know their own history, never mind about anybody else's. We've had what is possibly the last communication this evening from this fanatical Star Trek fan called Samantha in the United States. We've had a lot of people from the United States.
A lot, yeah.
Which is cool. And she says, just for your information, because I said that a guy called Julian probably wasn't American, and she says, for your information, Julian Bashir was a character on DS9. Deep Space Nine, it's a spin-off from Star Trek, and is a USA name. Listen, that's about all we've got time for. Unfortunately, there's still emails coming in, and I'm not going to be able to read them all out, but thank you to everybody who's emailed and texted and called the show this evening.
Yeah.
It's definitely been an 8.
I would give it an 8, definitely.
Now, I've had it through that a senior Star Trek expert would like to cross swords with me. It's 11:30. Shall we think about that? A man called Gabriel Kerner, who is considered to be the greatest Star Trek fan on Earth by Americans. And he wants to kick my butt.
Ooh.
Do you fancy me having an argument with him?
Yeah, I think so.
Can I give you that?
Yeah.
I believe we have on line one, the celebrated... Is it Gabriel Kerner?
It's Gabriel, actually.
Gabriel, how do you do?
Very well. It's my pleasure to make your acquaintance.
It's an irony talking to somebody called Gabriel, since we're in the middle of discussing religious matters on this programme this evening. That's a wonderful name you have there.
Thank you so very much.
Now, I hear that you're... I hear you are a great expert on Star Trek and are concerned about some arguments that we've been having over here in the UK.
You know, I am indeed. I was passed along a link to some correspondence that was said on your show regarding Star Trek and its social impacts. Now, I'm one that's been a lifelong fan. I've loved it very much my whole life, and used it as a positive springboard to try to move on to a degree of success in my life. And I don't feel it's as much of a hindrance nor a detrimental social impactor as you seem to think it is.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think, first of all, a couple of little things. One, and this is a small point, but unfortunately, you're going to find it very difficult to deal with. Why are there so many letter K's in all the key words in Star Trek?
Letter K's in all the key words in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Some writers are trying to figure out some words that sound spacey and futuristic. I guess the letter K can get pretty easily thrown in there. I don't know. It doesn't seem relevant in any way whatsoever. I mean, I know writers for the show, and if you ask them that, they just say, I don't know. Do you think there's some kind of greater conspiracy behind it?
Well, unless you got a better argument than that, then that is a possibility, a strong possibility.
So you're thinking there's letter... What, do you think it has something to do with the Klan, something like that?
It springs to mind, doesn't it?
You know, writers get hired onto the show. They get to come up with alien and planet names. They're throwing the letter K in there for no other reason than just to do. I have no idea how.
I think you'll find that most of the names that we're talking about were dreamed up by Gene Roddenberry and whoever was paying the money for the first Star Trek episodes.
Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about original series ideas.
Star Trek, Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Klingons. That's a lot more K's than you'd normally get in 8 or 9 random words.
Well, there you go. Mr. Roddenberry's dead. We'll never have the chance to ask him, but as far as I know, there was a black woman on that bridge serving an important function amongst the crew. It was...
Oh, hey, she was a telephonist.
Well, this is...
She was the lowest of the low. She had the lowest, easiest, most patronizing job on the spaceship.
And she inspired Whoopi Goldberg to start her career. I mean, this is an era of television where you know, black actresses could find jobs as maids. And
well, where were the rest of the black people on the Star Trek Enterprise?
They were going through the corridors. Go back and watch the show. There's
going through the corridors. There's a couple of guys doing nothing, just walking along.
Dr. Mbenga, who was the second surgeon aboard the Enterprise,
it's disproportionate
character in the show.
The problem of the people who made this program was, I believe, as follows. They were trying to present a picture of how the world is going to be in 200 years' time.
That's correct.
They were hamstrung by 2 things. One, the sensibilities of the day wouldn't allow them to have, for example, gay people or disabled people aboard the Starship Enterprise.
No, certainly. We're also dealing with sponsors. There's certain themes you couldn't play or do.
Now
we're dealing with the Midwest. We're dealing with.
Now you're talking. Who was the sponsor of the first series of Star Trek?
They had a lot of sponsors that were bankrolling NBC in their programming. Now
who was the main sponsor? Who Star Trek brought to you by? Who was it?
Brought to you by. Be my guest to offer that up.
You don't know?
I don't know the spite. I know the fictional aspects of the programming. I know a lot of the business aspects of it. Please tell me who the main sponsor was.
Well, you'll be surprised when you find out. Have you heard the rumor that there's a brand of cigarette made by the biggest manufacturer of cigarettes in the United States that some people say is controlled by the Ku Klux Klan? Have you heard that?
I'm not aware of.
Oh, okay.
Enlighten me, please.
Yeah, it's one of those conspiracy theories. I happen to believe it's nuts, but a lot of people believe it's true. They're called Philip Morris.
Aha, Philip Morris. I'm no fan of Philip Morris, but I'm sure they sponsored a great deal of television programming in the day, Star Trek being one amongst many.
And they had the letter, and the story goes, it's rubbish, but the story goes that they wanted the letter K put on the packets of all these cigarettes. That's the story. It's rubbish, isn't it?
Very, very interesting, but it's reaching pretty far. It really is reaching pretty far. As far as I know, we're dealing with a franchise that, on an entire spin-off series from 93 to 99, had a black lead actor.
We're talking about the people who started the series here. You know.
Okay, we're going back to the beginnings.
Yeah, of course. Obviously.
We're not covering any modern spin-offs. We're just doing the beginning.
Well, nobody watches those shows anymore anyway.
Well, there you go.
We're talking about the granddaddy of the whole thing.
Granddaddy of the whole thing.
Yeah, because that's what gave it its entire moral milieu.
Okay, well, there you go. Now...
Who was the company who put up the money for the first Star Trek pilot?
That was Desilu. Desilu bankrolled the pilot.
Who were Desilu?
Desilu was the production company owned by Lucille Ball and her husband, Desi Arnaz.
And their TV show was called?
Their TV show was I Love Lucy, and also in their studio at the time they had Mannix, Mission Impossible, things like that.
Who sponsored I Love Lucy?
I am unaware of the sponsor of I Love Lucy.
I Love Lucy's sponsor was Philip Morris.
Okay, so Desilu had a working relationship with Philip Morris.
But does it not strike you as being, hang on a second. Let me be clear to you. I think this is rubbish. But when I researched it, and this is original, because you're supposed to be one of the world's great experts on Star Trek, and you didn't know any of this. Does it not make you think, hang on a second, I just have to find out a bit more about that? Why was the first captain called Pike?
because it's a strong-sounding one-syllable name that a writer came up with.
Is it absolutely not because the most famous Ku Klux Klansman after the American Civil War was a Confederate general called Pike? The most famous Klansman of all time.
Are you aware that earlier drafts of the script had the character named April?
What's April got to do with anything?
April was the name of the character for several drafts before it became...
Yeah, but why April?
April's a word.
I know it's a word. It's also the month on which the American Civil War started and ended. You say. It's not my kind of big killer argument.
Amusing. This is all very amusing.
It's new to you. That's what you mean. It's new to you.
In nearly 40 years, let's just put it this way, I have never met a large-scale denomination of Klan member Star Trek fans. I have never been to a convention and seen people in a uniform with pointed ears and a white hood on their head.
No, well, of course you don't. The whole point is that they're a secret organisation, but they weren't a secret organisation when Gene Roddenberry was a boy, and the headquarters of the Confederate Army, which, of course, as you know, spawned the Ku Klux Klan, was in El Paso. And who was born in El Paso?
Mr. Roddenberry was born in El Paso.
That's another
If this was his intent, if there's any merit to this whatsoever...
It gets interesting, though. It clusters up, doesn't it?
This is amusing. I'm liking this.
Why Kirk? Why Kirk? Why did he choose the name Kirk? What is a Kirk?
Kirk is derivative of church.
It's the Scottish word for a church. A Scottish church is a Kirk. Do you know what the flag of the Ku Klux Klan is?
I'm aware of what the flag of the Ku Klux Klan is.
What's its a diagonal cross.
That's correct.
The diagonal cross is the cross of the flag of the Scottish Church.
Wow.
It's called a saltire.
You know, I'll be honest with you. You got something really fun here. You've obviously researched this really well.
Oh, fella, I am good. You got nobody anywhere near as good as me in the States. So I sympathise that this kind of stuff is all new to you. The reason that the cross of the Scottish Church is flag of the Scottish Church is a diagonal cross is because their saint, St. Andrew, was crucified on a diagonal cross. And the diagonal cross is not only the flag of the Confederate Army in the American Civil War, but it's also the flag of the Ku Klux Klan, and it's almost unique to use the saltire, the diagonal cross, as your flag.
Who has been incited to ethnic hatred by Star Trek? Because I have yet to meet them.
We'll get there. This hasn't ended yet. You go looking for the links. And I have to say this, I don't believe it myself. I don't believe there's any link at all between the Ku Klux Klan and Star Trek. But look at the evidence.
This is a lot of very fascinating information. What I believe about Gene Roddenberry is that a lot of fans glorify him. A lot of fans think he was the greatest idealist in the world. He wasn't. He was a womanizer. He was a flawed producer with a multitude of personal problems. I am not yet convinced, despite this information, that being incited to...
You mentioned Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Okay. Devices used by television programs. You remember the beginning of Mission Impossible? The guy hears what the mission is, and then he goes to his book of agents. What happens? He turns a page, and there's a face. He goes, no. He turns a page, there's a face, and he goes, yes. He picks the team that he needs to do the job. Who are the faces that each week he doesn't use? Do you know who they are?
Who are they?
They are the immediate family of the man whose company sponsored Mission Impossible. When you come to get recommissioned, you've got to persuade your sponsor. Because if your sponsor doesn't think he or she is getting value for their dollars, then they pull out, and you've got no show.
Okay,
but
let's consider another possibility. Let's consider the possibility that, yes, Philip Morris did have a Klan agenda.
I don't believe that, but some people do.
Some people do. Let's hypothesize for a moment that they did, and hypothesize that they were using their influence to encourage semantics and purely superficial naming and things of that nature being put into Star Trek.
Yeah.
What if their producers were oblivious? These are seemingly simple things being put into the show. They're insisting on names, places, dates, things of that nature.
They're motifs.
How do you make this connection? Because most people wouldn't.
I did, and it works.
So we have to consider the possibility they could have been oblivious to these elements. And it's a sponsorship-related thing.
Or the possibility that it's nothing more than a private joke.
Well, there you go. I mean...
Or that it's no more significant...
connection's interesting.
It's no more significant than the makers of Mission Impossible being seduced into keeping their money going into the show by the fact that the guy who owned the company didn't want his daughter saying to him, "But Dad, I'm on national television every week. You've got to keep the show going."
This would be an interesting question too. I'll tell you who you should get on your show is a man named Herb Solow, who is still alive. He was the chief executive at Desilu, overseeing all of the productions going on during those years. He's the man who gave Star Trek the green light. He wrote a book. He's actually a friend of mine. He wrote a book with producer Robert Justman chronicling the genesis of the show and its initial sale to Desilu.
Okay, I may do that, or I may ask you, if you get a moment, since you're acquainted, if you could do that for me and perhaps pass on some of the new stuff that I've introduced to you this evening. But a couple of other things. There's an episode where the crew of the Starship Enterprise visit a planet which is being run by Nazis. I think it's called Patterns of Force.
Patterns of Force, yeah.
And when they get there, they find out that this planet, which was once in chaos, suffering all sorts of economic and various problems, has been turned into a utopia by the introduction of Nazism.
That's correct. It was a Federation ambassador who had done so.
Yeah. And he was a sort of the Führer. And then what happens is that one of the Führer's sidekicks decides to drug the Führer and force him into declaring war on an adjacent planet. But the crew of the Starship Enterprise managed to beam down as Nazis, disguised as a television crew, and rescue the man who is posing as the Führer from his comrades, who are seeking to drug him, and embark on a heinous imperial war. And the implication surely might have been, wow, what about Nazism and the Führer?
That's very, very interesting. What I read into that episode was that it's quite clearly stated by the end of the episode, Nazi ideals are incorrect. They don't work, and the society had obviously abused their utopia to take it completely down the wrong direction.
No, that's not true. One guy did. The Deputy Führer.
The Deputy Führer, and everybody followed suit.
Yeah, but the Deputy Führer was the bad guy, not the Führer. And Nazism worked. That was the message of the episode.
Well, we're not living in a Nazi-fascist society, so a TV show didn't exactly push us that direction. Now, the point I want to get back to, if you could offer this up, who was incited to hatred, to supporting Nazis, to supporting the Klan by Star Trek? What widespread group of people love Star Trek on this basis? I have yet to meet them.
Well, they're in Iraq.
They're in Iraq. Please elaborate. Are you talking about our armed forces?
Yep.
I don't even know where to begin with that. I am a politically liberal person who did not support this completely ham-fisted effort over there, and it was
like an episode out of Star Trek.
Like an episode out of Star Trek. Okay, what we're doing there is a personal agenda for our president. It has nothing to do with an idealistic war on terror. It's about
the simplistic thinking that permeates every Star Trek episode, which is occasionally embroidered by a rather overstated, over-obvious, and sometimes entirely fictional instruction that what you're watching is something that is designed to promote peace, harmony, and understanding. The message which permeates every Star Trek episode is a simplistic message of Starship Enterprise good the other guys food for photon torpedoes. I was always concerned. Yeah, I was always concerned that the bad guys in Star Trek looked like racial stereotypes. They looked black and Asian.
Not necessarily. Well, what we started with were the Romulans, and they were an analogy for the Roman Empire. They were an arrogant, imperialistic, honor-driven kind of society. We played with the Romulans, and then they decided to introduce the Klingons as an alternative villain, namely to save money on pointed ear makeup.
I accept that, and that's a good point. However, it was very unfortunate that the winners, the good guys, always looked like white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
It is an interesting point. I will give you that. However,
I know.
Making a connection to Iraq and our armed forces and whatever the hell they're doing over there, because I don't know. And okay, Star Trek. What I'll give you is yes. You had this whole Captain Kirk idea of making preemptive strikes. We should bring our Federation ideals and plant them on wherever planet we're on. You have episodes like The Apple, where you have a race of people that worship a god that's a lizard-shaped cave kind of thing, and then Captain Kirk will come in being kind of go, no, your religion, your Bible, it's all crap. Forget it all. This is the way you should be. Yes, that was one of the fatal flaws of the original show. I believe the intentions were good.
Okay. I got to go because I've got a queue going around the block, but I'm really enjoying talking to you, and maybe we'll talk again. I just want to ask you one thing out of total vanity.
Be my guest.
You sent an email which got to me, which says that you say that I am saying things both utterly ridiculous and dishonest, using only blunt generalizations that seem to indicate less than 5 minutes of actual research. Does that need rewording?
I recant that. You've obviously done your research. However, I still feel there's much we would have to talk about if you'd ever like to pick this up at a later date.
Okay. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely. If you'd like to do this again at some point, I'd be there for you.
Love and peace.
All right, take care.
They're good on the radio, Americans, aren't they? I'm not saying they're better than us, but they're good. And I'll tell you where they're better than us and where he's better than me, is that, well, he said, yeah, you're good. Maybe I've never met anybody who's as good as me, but if I did, no, I would tell them, and I'd enjoy it. I'd enjoy it. Gabriel Kerner, that was from the United States. That's probably all about Star Trek 4 this evening, but, we may return to it. That was good. Did you hear the call with the American guy?
I did, yeah.
He was depressingly... no, he wasn't depressingly. He was deliciously honest, unlike a lot of British people, when he realised that... he's supposed to be the world's leading expert on Star Trek.
Yeah, but he was quite happy to admit that there was some things he didn't know.
He didn't know anything that I told him. I want to say again, because I want to make absolutely clear, I do not believe that the Ku Klux Klan owns... or has any influence whatsoever on Star Trek. No. Nor do I believe that a cigarette manufacturer in the United States is in any way enthralled to the Ku Klux Klan. It's ludicrous.
Absolutely.
But it is a well-known, reasonably well-known, conspiracy theory. Based on nothing more or less than you can find 3 Ks on a certain packet of facts, which is... what? No. But, it just shows what you can do if you go hunting for the right bits of information, doesn't it? So that fellow was pretty good in saying, yeah, hey, haven't thought of that. Pat Cecil has emailed from Stevenage. Hi, Tom and Allison. Great show again. Loved the conversation with the Trek expert. Gabriel, I don't think he managed to kick butt after all. Brilliant. I'm a reasonably intelligent bloke, but I wouldn't get into an argument with you. It would be like getting into a pool with a tiger shark. Oh, that's kind, isn't it? Wearing a tuna-flavoured snake belt. But what is blasphemy again? Is it not deny? There is a definition of blasphemy, which is still a crime in this country. I don't know what is blasphemous. I had my 2 years in Fleet Street. I learned all about libel and slander, but blasphemy we never came up. But I quite like talking to Christians on the air. I'm quite happy to talk to anybody who wants to tell me that there is a God and that God's only prophet was Christ and that Christ was the Son of God and that he died for our sins and that he was resurrected. Because I enjoy hearing all that. I don't believe it myself. Part of me wishes I did. What about you?
Yeah, I believe it.
Do you?
Yes.
Fantastic. I don't want to give Christians a hard time either. Because I feel that, although I feel that a lot of people who are Christians are a bit misguided and a bit not very well informed. I do think that what lies at the heart of most of the things that they go on about is that they don't like nastiness. Which is, I mean, you could say that's childlike, you could say it's naive, you could say it's impractical, you can say that it means that you won't actually get involved in any of the really important work that needs to be going on. I'll be sad to discover that there are some of Christ's people who'll be standing outside Broadcasting House or Television Centre or whatever tonight, complaining about a television programme, when I'd like to ask them if they believe that their God was responsible for the dread... You know, this argument's been happening in plenty of places. Whether they believe that it was their God who was responsible for the terrible things that happened in the Indian Ocean on Boxing Day. It's not a debate I want to get into, but...
No.
But I would be interested in asking somebody who wanted to take time out of their life to protest about an opera on television, whether they've really got a good perspective on what's important. Well, it's not one you can solve, though, is it? That's the other thing, Alison. I've decided not to spend too much time thinking about religion anymore. No,
it does worry me, though, this notion that our callers had on earlier, the Christians, that about this vengeful God. Because the God I believe in is a forgiving God. Not vengeful in that way.
Of course, yeah.
Not cruel. No. And that is my problem with... because I think a lot of born-again Christians do think that way. I had a conversation just a few days with somebody who was spouting the same views.
Yeah. We've got a bloke in the... couple of blokes, actually, 3 or 4 guys, in the town where I live, in Chichester, who go and stand... We've got this cross that's in the middle of the town, because it's Cathedral City.
Yeah.
And we get these blokes who come and stand and preach there, and they are terrifying. It concerns me a bit. One of my sons is particularly worried about and angry about this, that they frighten the children. Because as shoppers are walking past and hither and thither, and they're in their spiel, they're fixing their eyes on individuals from one to another to another. And they do it with the children as well. And they tell them that they're bad and they're going to go to hell. And, you know, I said to my son, you shouldn't be able to get away with that, because you're literally frightening the horses. You're frightening children.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that, I mean, I'd have a lot more time for organised religion if organised religion were able to put some distance between itself and the doom and gloom, hellfire preachers of that calibre. But yeah, I mean, there probably is a God, but you're not supposed to know about it whilst you're down here, because he wants you to see if you can do it by yourself. If you can learn to walk by yourself, which just means be a good soul. That's what I reckon. Agnostic is what I am. Don't know, haven't seen enough to be certain that there is a God, haven't seen enough to be certain that there isn't a God.
So you haven't quite made your mind up?
I don't think I ever will, and I'm like that. I think God will say, yeah, that's right. I think judge you on what you do, not what you pretend to do. On who you are, not who you pretend to be. Because if you're following a biblical rule book, even though your heart is as black as the ace of spades, then is that somebody he wants knocking around in heaven, going from cloud to cloud, or whatever they do? He wants somebody who's actually got himself a bit of a morality and a good ethical code and a moral code that they live to. That's what I think. Richard Henline in Kentucky. Disgusted to hear you condoning adultery. I tuned in to hear your Star Trek show a few weeks ago, and I won't be tuning in again. Yeah, you will. What you condone is against the laws of God. Nope. Nope. Not against the laws of God. Let me tell you, what you sow you will surely reap, young man. I never know what that means. Americans, aren't they fantastic? Someone who has emailed themselves as Black Rider says, without God, what is the value of morality? If Freud was right and with his death instinct, and we are gods ourselves, why not create ourselves in line with this instinct where the instinct is more persuasive? You're drunk, whoever you are. Aren't they?
Me and my wife are both Christians, and you asked for a Christian to phone you.
Well, I'm always interested in talking to a Christian, but you don't sound like one of those sort of, what do you call them, witnesses or fundamentalists? Oh,
no, we're not a Jehovah's Witness and we're not a Mormon. No. We're born-again Christians.
What does that mean, being born again?
What it actually means is that we've given our life to Jesus, we've changed... It's like a new life in Jesus. Do you want to speak to him? I'll put my wife on, she'll speak to you.
All right.
That's Julie.
Okay.
Hello, Tom.
Who got Christianity first then, or were you Christians before you met?
Oh, yes, we were Christians before we met.
Oh,
I became a Christian when I was 13.
I see.
Yes, and I'm 63 now.
Right.
So
what happened?
And I can say all through those years,
yes,
I've come to know Jesus, and he's meant everything to me in my life.
Right.
And he's made a real difference in my life.
Good.
And I've got a real personal relationship with him. And Bill, my husband, he became a Christian later on in life, but he's been completely changed around his whole life.
The pair of you have got an endearing habit of both telling each other what to say when they're on the telephone to me, which is fine.
He's agreeing with what I just said.
Yeah, I'm fine, that's good. Yeah, just for a minute. What's your name?
My name's Julie.
Julie. So, Julie, you say you've got this personal relationship with Jesus. I mean,
yes.
Obviously he's dead.
Pardon?
He's dead.
He's alive. He rose again. He ascended into heaven. And he's come back in the form of his Holy Spirit, and he lives in the lives of those who put their trust in him.
But he's not alive in the way that you and I are alive.
No, but we can know his presence. We can feel his presence. We can know that he's really answers prayer. The times and times and times again that we've prayed and the Lord's answered exactly what we prayed for.
Right.
And even things that we haven't prayed for, we've had as well. I mean, he's faithful all the time.
I'm going to ask you this, even though it's probably unfair. I want to ask somebody who believes in God this question. You know, there are people, and I'm not amongst them, who have said that this tsunami in the Indian Ocean calls into question the whole idea of whether there's a God.
Well, I don't think so, because...
I didn't think you would, but I'm interested in the argument that you've got. If you've got one, you don't have to, because it might just be your faith, as you call it.
Well, the general view would be of people, I would imagine, that they would say, well, if God's a God of love, why does he allow this to happen?
Yeah.
And I say that it's because of sin in the world, because Adam and Eve at the beginning hadn't sinned and they had fellowship with God. But once they sinned, a curse came on the earth, and there was sin in the world. And it's because of sin in the world, and nature and everything has been affected. And that
where I have trouble with that, where I have real trouble with that, is that you've got this. You must see that you've got some notion of you appear to have some notion of an element of justice about such a disaster.
No, it's not justice. It's that we've inherited this because of man's sin.
I don't understand.
Well, the world was cursed because of man's sin. And
who cursed it?
Nature was affected by man's fall.
Who cursed it then?
Well, God, because of man.
So God did do these terrible things.
You see, God wouldn't leave the world in that state. God so loved the world that he sent Jesus to die on the cross to take away our sins, so we can know sin forgiven. And although things in the earth look wrong at the moment...
Now, are you saying that if we stopped sinning, then there wouldn't be any more earthquakes?
No, not if we stop sinning, no, because sin's already in the world.
But let's be clear.
And nature has been affected because of sin.
Right, so you are saying that if we all stopped sinning, then there wouldn't be any more earthquakes?
Well, if there hadn't been any sin, there wouldn't have been any earthquakes.
And if we stopped sinning now, there'd never be another earthquake?
No, I'm not saying that.
It's
too late. That's too late.
So it doesn't matter what... Right, okay, what was the sin again then?
Well, man was forbidden to eat the fruit of the tree in the garden.
But it wasn't about...
Eve ate it and then tempted Adam to do so.
But the apple was symbolic somehow, surely.
Well, somebody calls it an apple, but this wasn't symbolic, it actually happened. We believe whatever's in the Bible actually happened.
Right, so what's wrong with eating an apple?
No, nothing's wrong in eating an apple or any other fruit.
Right.
But if you're told not to do it and you do it, then it becomes wrong.
Well, why would God tell somebody not to eat an apple?
Well, he said that if they did, they'd know between the knowledge of good and evil. We don't know what fruit it was, but it was a fruit in the tree in the middle of the garden. But they gave in to Satan. He tempted them and they gave in to him.
Yeah, but I don't understand. What was it a test then for these people that God said, don't eat that fruit, there's nothing wrong with it, I don't need it, fruit's there to be eaten, but I want you not to eat it?
Yeah, he said they could eat any of the fruit in the garden except that from that tree.
That's the bit I have trouble with. Why did he do that?
Well, because he's God, because he...
No, but what was his reasoning? Because, listen, otherwise...
Well, he wanted to see if they would be obedient to him.
Well, that's a bit much, isn't it? I mean, I'm obedient if I can see the sense in the command, but I am thoroughly disobedient, will always be disobedient, just as I would disobey Satan if he told me to do something or not do something that was plainly stupid.
Yes, I see what you mean.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't want to convert you into an atheist.
Well, you never do that, so it's not worth trying, because I've been a Christian too long to know how faithful God is and how real he is and how concerned he is about my life. I mean, he so loved me that he sent Jesus to suffer and die on the cross to take away the sin that I committed so I could go to live with him in heaven forever.
Yeah. Well, I envy you enormously. I think you're very lucky.
Well, everyone's got the choice. Everyone can have that hope in their life.
No, you haven't got the choice. Actually, I don't agree with you. It's not a choice.
Well, everyone can choose to come to Jesus.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
No, you can't. No,
it's all free. It's all open.
No, you cannot choose to become somebody who just believes, like you do, that if you're nice to Jesus and you talk to him and you pray to him, then one day you'll live forever in heaven. Nobody... I'm afraid, I have to say, that nobody... How best do I put this? Nobody who has seen as much as I have seen and understood as much as I have understood and read as much as I have read and met as many people as I have met and has come to a full and rich understanding, he thinks, of what this world truly is, can choose now to forget all that. I can't. I suppose, and I don't mean this to be unkind to you, but I suppose what I'm saying is I wish sometimes I was stupid and ignorant of the facts of the matter, but I'm not. And I don't, and I can't get my head around the idea that God kind of said, right, somebody 4,000 years ago ate a fruit when I said they couldn't, and so I'm going to deliver plague, pestilence and tsunamis all over the place. Because that makes him sound like he's got the intelligence and the moral code of some bloody South American dictator. That's what you make him sound like. And I actually think that if I have a God, I think my God is nicer than your God. Because my God wouldn't do that.
Well,
my God wouldn't send earthquakes. I mean, how can you love a God who does things like that?
But he's not doing it. It's called
No, that's not joined up thinking. You said he decided to deliver all this kind of thing because people sinned against some ludicrous command of his. And that doesn't work.
When Adam and Eve sinned, they were saying...
It wasn't a sin! They broke a stupid, meaningless, petty rule. That's not sinning. That isn't sinning. That is not sin.
They listened to
that is no more sin than littering in the street. It's annoying. It's some sort of a minor crime. But that eating a fruit that somebody said you can't eat is not a sin. That isn't a sin. Killing people is a bloody sin.
Then they would have wanted to be like God.
How is it a sin?
Satan wanted to be like God. That's why.
How can you use the word sin in relation to eating a piece of fruit? For crying out loud.
No, but it was the principle of the whole thing. It was disobedience.
It's not a sin. You can't construct a notion whereby it's a sin.
God's will is a sin.
You see, they knew that they'd done wrong because they hid from God in the garden.
God's will is that people grow and mature and that their souls develop and that they understand, acquire wisdom, and in that wisdom realise the importance of love and kindness and generosity. That is God's will.
God's will. God's will. Comes to know him. Yes,
God's will. Yeah, but God's will. If God's the kind of bloke who says you can eat that fruit, that fruit, that fruit, that fruit, but not that fruit, oh no. If he's that kind of a bloke, I wouldn't want to know him.
Well, you wouldn't, but I've proved him all my life to know him as somebody who's real and someone who cares for me.
But can you not see how ridiculous a command like that is?
No.
Well, what's the common sense in it?
Well, they were giving in to Satan. They were saying yes to Satan and no to God.
Well, what's the common sense? Well, where's Satan coming from saying you've got to eat a fruit? What's in it for him? What difference does it make what people eat?
He came to Eve.
Your problem is that you don't understand symbolism in literature, because an apple always refers to sex in literature.
But it doesn't say it was an apple. It was fruit. It doesn't say it was an apple. People have said it's an apple, but we don't know it.
Whatever fruit it was, it symbolises sex.
No, I can't see that.
Well, then I refer you to any work of literature in which fruit is used as a symbol.
Yeah, I'm not talking about...
It's a symbol.
I'm talking about reality.
Bible is a work of...
Jesus is real in our life.
Bible is a work of literature. whatever you think it might else be, it is basically a work of literature. And it uses symbolism as effectively, if not more effectively, than any other work of literature I can think of. And what Jesus or God or whoever wrote the Bible was saying is, don't go round having sex willy-nilly. Couldn't have put it better, could I? That's what they're saying.
Yeah, but that
was the sin.
It was just Adam and Eve in the garden.
That was the sin.
It was just Adam and Eve in the garden.
That was the sin. Sex.
No.
Yes. Absolutely. Utterly. If God was here, he'd tell me I'm right and you're decent and kind, but not right.
You see, they knew they'd sinned and they covered themselves up because they knew they were naked.
Which bits did they cover up?
Well, it's obvious.
God.
Tell me then, Bob.
They hid.
Which bits did they cover up?
God covered them up.
Which bits did they cover up?
Well, he made them skins.
Which bits did they cover up?
Well, it's obvious what they covered up.
Tell me. Tell me which bits. Did they cover up? I don't know. Did they cover up their ears?
No.
Did they cover up their feet?
No, they didn't. But we're just getting into an argument which doesn't mean anything.
No, but can you not see?
Yeah, we're getting into an argument which doesn't mean anything.
Of course it means something. No, don't be. Hey. Look, I'm assuming that you are reasonably intelligent.
Yes.
Okay? You said that after they committed the sin, which you think has got nothing to do with sex, God told them to cover up their genitals.
They covered them up before God told them to.
No,
whatever, it's still about sex, isn't it?
And then God made them skins.
But what are the genitals for? Sex.
Yes, but they'd eaten of the tree of knowledge and they were going to be as wise as God.
Why did he tell them to cover up their genitals?
He didn't, they covered them up themselves.
Why did they choose to cover them up themselves? Are you being deliberately trying to sort of slow down the conversation?
No, we're not. But the thing is,
what's this? Wait, no! Come on.
No, we could be all night on this point, and we wouldn't get anywhere.
Well, isn't that because is that not because you might have closed minds?
No. One day we've all got to die, and we've all got to go before the judgment seat of God, and we'll have to give an account of how we've lived our lives. And if we haven't trusted Jesus to be our saviour, then we'll go to hell.
Thanks for your call. I wouldn't mind going to hell because I wouldn't want to spend...
But you wouldn't want to go there.
I wouldn't want to spend eternity with a load of Christians.
Well, you'd much sooner...
I mean, what do we talk about? Where's the fun?
When you get to it, then you will.
Yeah, maybe.
Tell me pray for him.
Anyway, it's nice to talk to you.
And you, fella.
Tell me pray for him.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Going to pray for me. 08459 570057. Our next caller is Anne, and she's in East Horsley. Will you stop ringing the programme, everybody? I want to get Alison in the studio here, and when you ring the programme, because she's a professional, she goes and straddles the switchboard. There's an image for you. And I need her here as well as straddling the switchboard. We go to East Horsley, and Anne, who is our next caller. Hello, Anne.
Hello. First of all, what's your name? I'm so sorry.
You can call me Tommy.
Oh, that's not your name, though, is it? I would have remembered that.
Adrian, then.
Forget it.
Okay.
It's strange that this argument should have cropped up just now with the lady and gentleman who is so religious. I had given this about a month ago a lot of thought, feeling a bit guilty of not being religious and wondered why. And what I would like to know is from them, you've got Cain, you've got Adam and Eve, and they had the boys, Cain and Abel, and the other ones. Now, Cain or Abel, which one it was sent forth to multiply, for which he did. Now, my way of looking at that, there's only one answer to that. There was only Adam and Eve, so there was only his mother left, so it must have been incest. Does that make sense to you?
Not really.
Well, who else? Who can Cain? Who can any of the sons of Adam and Eve multiply with when there's only Adam and Eve?
It didn't happen.
On the earth.
It didn't happen. It's like talking about an episode of EastEnders as if it's real.
Oh, heaven's sakes, it's in the Bible. Surely they're not believing things that aren't real all the time, people.
Most of the stuff in the Bible got made up.
Yes.
Yes.
I've changed its name. I've changed God's name.
Have you?
Yes, to nature.
What's he called now?
Nature.
Well, that's not very good.
Oh, it is.
It isn't. You can't call him nature. I know what you're driving at. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Forces of
exactly.
nature,
Everything that happens is caused by nature.
Wouldn't it be better, though, to believe that actually you're your own God? That's what I believe. I believe I am my God.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm not always right, dear, and I find that out.
Yeah, but that's my point. You see, a lot of people who believe in God simply follow a rule book and think that if they follow a rule book all their lives, then they'll get some kind of a reward later. And the problem with that is that you never actually get to make any decisions yourself. You're just following somebody else's rule book. So you might live your 70, and what have you learned? The rule book. But the things that we really learn are through our experience.
Yeah.
And the more experience you have, the more opportunities you take to investigate and evaluate what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad, what's love and the opposite, then the greater understanding your mind and your soul will have. Now, what that means is that there's a bit of God in each of us.
Well, there's nature in each of us, and it can be good or bad.
Right.
We don't get everything right.
No.
And we don't think everything right.
Anne, thank you very much indeed for your call. Let's take the caller on line 1. Good evening, you're on Southern Counties Radio. Who's this?
Is that me?
Yes, it's you. Hello, what's your name?
Dorothy Ball in Stenning, West Sussex.
Hello, Dorothy.
Hello. I listened to your arguments. I think you're very self-opinionated.
Yes, that's right.
And I don't think they're valid at all.
Well, that makes you self-opinionated. So.
Not at all. We all have opinions, but we can make them politely, and we can stress them and not argue with other people. Your job is to talk on the radio. I listen to Paul.
Where does it say that?
I beg pardon?
Where does it say that my job is to talk on the radio?
Well, you are on the radio to produce and have a chat show. That's part of your contact.
I know what my job is. You don't.
Well, I know what you're supposed to do. I work for BBC.
You don't.
I beg your pardon.
I beg your pardon. You haven't got a clue what I'm supposed to do. How dare you?
Doing your job properly.
How dare you?
Okay.
How dare you? Just because you were somebody's clerk at Broadcasting House, now you're telling me that you think that you know what my job is supposed to be. You haven't got a clue. How dare you?
How dare you say I was a clerk? You don't know what my job was either.
What were you?
I work for a producer.
As a clerk?
No.
What?
As a PA.
As a clerk?
No, as
yes,
a PA.
Is. I guessed you dead right. You're a clerk.
Well, you're self-opinionated on that.
Well, at least I guessed your job better than you guessed mine.
How do you qualify your
You got more clues about my job than I had about yours, but I guessed yours.
You did not guess mine
I
at all.
did. You're a clerk.
Well,
and by the way, what's wrong with being a clerk? I didn't say there was anything wrong with being a clerk.
I know you didn't.
You seem to think that you're above being a clerk.
I was.
Oh, you were above being a clerk?
Yes.
Well, I hope there are some clerks listening who you've put down quite nicely for no particular reason.
I haven't put them down.
Yes, you have.
Not put them. We all progress in our jobs.
You're denigrating clerks.
I'm not denigrating clerks at all.
Yes, you are. You're saying you were better than a clerk.
I'm not going to argue with you because I heard that previous lady, and I think you treated her very badly. I'm not putting you down as you put her down, which I think was very bad policy. That's up to you how you do your job. But I'm just saying that I think your behaviour on this programme at times is quite abusive.
Thank you very much.
And quite aggressive.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure you'll agree on that.
I do, absolutely.
Pardon?
I do, absolutely.
Oh, well, that's good, because at least now we know what we're talking about.
Well, I don't think there's any confusion, except perhaps for yourself.
Not at all. Not at all. I was merely stating an opinion, which you do very well.
Yes, I do, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Don't I, just?
And very, very, very aggressive.
I haven't had anybody come up past my knee yet.
No.
No.
It'd be a job too, wouldn't it?
It would, wouldn't it, eh?
Yeah, it would. It would indeed.
Fantastic.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
No,
I'd love to see the day myself.
Yeah, I would too. But I just think that sometimes you can be over the top. You can be very aggressive and very, very unpleasant to people who listen or try to listen to this programme and get so infuriated by yourself, opinionated.
Good, I'm glad. And I'll tell you why I'm glad. Because this country's got quite enough anaesthetic floating around. I think we need just a little bit more excitement, and I think we need a little bit more edge, we need a little bit more attitude, we need a little bit more sharp points, we need a little bit more spike. Bath, get us going. We need to get our temperature raised, we need to get our pulse racing. We're all half asleep. We're all don't knows.
You think so?
I do.
And what were your opinion on this terrible, terrible earth-shattering earthquake? Don't you think people went for that and helped out on that one? Were we all apathetic and quiet on that? Because I don't think so. What was your attitude to that?
That's not a question yet.
It is a question.
It is not.
Well, I'm just asking you.
How can you have an opinion about an earthquake?
I asked you what your opinion was.
Yes, I know. Well, how can you have an opinion about an earthquake?
I have.
What's your earthquake opinion, then?
I think it's a terrible, terrible situation.
Good Lord, you don't think that an earthquake's a terrible, terrible situation? Hang on just a second, give me a pen. I must write that one down. Right, let's get this straight. You think that an earthquake is a terrible, terrible thing?
For the people who suffered.
Focuses on a particular aspect or issue of the disaster. And who's that having a go?
My husband, he gets very cross with you.
Well, put him on then if he thinks he's so
No,
tough.
he wouldn't speak to you, I'm sorry, he wouldn't.
Why not then? Is he better than that?
I don't expect to answer that.
Well, then tell him to be quiet whilst you're talking to me. It's rude. Isn't it?
No.
Yes, it is.
He's giving me an opinion on my conversation with you. That's all he's saying, which he's quite entitled to. He was very,
I don't agree.
He was very cross that I rang up and took the trouble to try and talk to you.
Was he good? I'm pleased about that. What's his name?
No, I'm not going to discuss my husband with you on the phone. There's no need to do. I merely phoned you up.
Well, he's appeared on this programme. How are we going to log him?
I beg your pardon?
He's appeared on the programme. How are we going to log him as anonymous?
I'm sorry.
He has appeared on the programme.
He has?
Yes, we heard him talking.
Oh, well,
Yes.
he hasn't appeared. That's just a verbal thing in the background. He hasn't appeared at all.
Yes, he has.
Any
He's
more
been
than
on-
you've appeared. I hear you. I don't see you.
Yeah, but we have to log him. What do we log him as? Come on, woman, come to bed.
No.
What should we log him as?
No. But no, the point being that I made...
Coward of East Grinstead.
No, I wouldn't. I shouldn't continue that tone anymore if I were you.
Why not? What's going to happen?
It's not very complimentary to anybody, really, is it? But anyway, disregarding
Well,
that,
why won't he come to the phone then?
he didn't come to the phone. He's talking to me across the room.
I know, but you're talking to somebody else. That's rude. I was taught not to talk to people who are talking to somebody else.
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
What do you mean, dear, oh dear? That's true. I was taught that is manners.
You have manners?
Well, your husband doesn't.
I don't think you do on occasions either.
Well, let's talk about your husband.
Extremely rude.
Well,
Extremely rude.
I don't talk to people who are talking to somebody else.
They're very offensive indeed. And
Thank you very much.
As for your comments on Elvis Presley, they again are your opinion.
You're not an Elvis Presley fan, are you?
If I was, I wouldn't talk about you because I think he was good. He was a good performer.
No, he wasn't.
Well, this is what you're
He was
saying.
trash. He was trash, and most of the people who think he's fantastic are pretty trashy.
This is your opinion. You're very detrimental to people's thoughts.
No, look, it's just a fact.
No, it's not a fact. It
is a fact.
It's not a fact.
Yes, but unlike some people, I've been around the block a few times. I've travelled. I've met all sorts. I've kept my eyes open. I've kept journals. I've watched. I've photographed. I've analysed. My opinions are based on travels.
Well, I've travelled extensively.
What,
Well,
I doubt it.
Are they fun?
Where?
I'm not going to list all the countries I've been to.
Well, it's like that remark in Monty Python, isn't it? Yes, she's travelled. She's from Purley.
I've been to America. I've been all over Canada. I've been all over Europe, just to name a few. So I think I've travelled apart from going... But I've never been to Purley, actually. But I mean, so don't sort of try and call it...
Well, anyway, I enjoyed having a fight with you. It was quite good fun, wasn't it?
Okay.
It was quite good exercise for the mind.
Well, that's right.
Yes,
God knows we need that.
What?
I said, God knows we need that.
Well, you see, that's my point, mate. That is my point, isn't it? We all need to get G'd up a little bit more.
Well, I think we're quite G'd up enough in this country with the situation it is.
Now, don't stop. Why don't you stop disagreeing with absolutely everything I say?
What,
I bet you if I were to tell you that your husband is the finest man on planet Earth, you say, well, I don't know about that.
No, I wouldn't discuss it. No, I think the point is that you have your opinion, you have your comments, same as I do. I mean, that's just part of life's little pattern. But I certainly wouldn't condemn anyone for having opinions. God knows, this is what it's all about.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much indeed for your call. But we go now to Worthing, and Mary is on line 2. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Tommy.
Mary.
I was cleaning my teeth and only half listening to you, just turning on the radio. Were you advocating that people should have sex if they want it, whether they're married or not, just for the sheer hell of it?
Well,
Was that your message?
No, I'd put it better than that, but...
Well, that was the meaning that came over.
Yeah.
And you said it was to satisfy your animalistic instinct.
Yeah.
Well, aren't you better than an animal?
No, sir. Which animal are you better than?
Well, I reason. I have reasoning powers, and I think you should live
Well, when you say
a
better,
more ethical life. And also, you say it doesn't harm anybody.
When you say
Let me
better-
say my piece, Tommy.
No, I won't. No, because... Hang on a second. No, wait,
This
no,
is how
let me...
you overcome people, by
let me-
shouting them
no,
down,
let
Tommy.
me... No, wait.
Let me say this.
No, Mary.
No, that's your blustering way of shutting people up.
No, that's
Tommy,
because
let
I
me
want to...
say what I'm going to tell you.
No, you're not allowed to come on here and just talk endlessly.
No, I'm not going to talk endlessly.
If
I
you
have
make
two
a
more
point...
points to make.
Yes, well, do you...
I will tell you you my 2 points.
Well, we'll deal with your points one at a time. Mary, Mary.
Go on then.
We will deal with your points one at a time.
Go on then. You're not an animal, you say, or you think you're not any better than an animal.
No. First of all, okay?
Right.
First of all, you did not hear what I said.
Right. Go on then. Enlighten me.
How did I find that out?
By what I've just asked you.
Yeah, because you said that you were only half listening.
I was.
So, on the basis...
I did ask your young lady, and she said to come on and ask you yourself.
Yeah, well, you didn't.
Well, come on then. Give me the answer.
Well, why, then, didn't you ask for clarification?
I'm asking you now.
Because if you do have reason... Wouldn't it have been reasonable to have asked what it was I was trying to say?
Well, come on then, what are you trying to say?
I have a question for you.
Right.
Why didn't you do that yourself?
I am asking you now, so I'm backtracking. Come on, answer me.
That's not the answer to my question.
No, our question is, did you say you were satisfying your animal instinct?
You should be asking me to repeat what it was I said.
Repeat it then.
Right, why didn't you think of that yourself?
Repeat it now, then.
Why didn't you think of asking me that yourself?
No, you're trying to get out of the answer.
I'm trying to establish that you're somebody who forms an opinion before you have any of the facts.
Right, go on then.
Is that true?
Give me the facts, then.
Are you somebody who forms an opinion before
Probably yes. I'd jump in with both feet and then wish I hadn't. But come on, give me the facts, then.
Why do you do that, and why does that make you better than an animal?
It doesn't, but anyway, I wasn't saying that I was better than an animal.
Yes, you said that 5 minutes ago. I've got it on tape. Would you like to hear it?
All right, then. Go on, play it back, then.
Would you like to hear that?
No. Come on,
why
then.
not?
Now, let's carry this discussion further.
Now you're saying...
Now let's carry this discussion further, Tommy. Come on. Play the game. We're having a discussion. We're not having an argument.
Yes, we are.
What? An argument? I don't argue with people. I discuss.
No, you don't.
I am.
You don't have the ability to discuss.
I'm trying to discuss with you.
No, you're not. You arrive at the radio, you haven't heard what somebody has said, but you want to condemn it.
Tommy. Well, answer me now, then.
What? Which question?
Tommy, I asked you, did you say you were no better than animal, you satisfy your animal instincts, and that it hurts nobody?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, what were you saying, then?
Which bit? I said a lot of things tonight.
The answer to those questions, those statements that I've just made.
I say this, I say sex is great.
Yes.
So why not have it whenever you want to?
No.
No, that's what I say.
No, you shouldn't.
I didn't
How
ask
do you think we've got an explosion of AIDS, and in the old days, gonorrhea and syphilis?
Again, you weren't listening to what I said.
Why not? If you're advocating have sex wherever you want it, with whoever you want, and not necessarily your wife or one partner,
yes,
that is not right.
You haven't listened to a word I've said, and yet you think I'm wrong.
That is the way it came over.
No, it didn't come over. You didn't hear properly.
Well, go on then, tell me what you did say then.
Do you know what?
What?
You heard half of what was said.
Yeah, but I was cleaning my teeth at the time and running the tap. And I was thinking, my God, what's he saying on air?
You're a disgrace.
Thank you very much.
You're an absolute disgrace. You heard half of what was said.
Yes.
And that half of what you heard, you misunderstood. And I'll tell you what you did. You misunderstood it deliberately.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Because you wanted to believe that there was somebody saying something that you could get them on. And you can't get me. You can't get me. I'll tell you why you can't get me. Because you're not good enough and because you're not decent enough.
Ah. How long have you been married, Tommy?
Because you want to condemn me, and I have no interest in condemning you. I have no interest in trapping you or getting you, but because you pitched up with your boxing gloves on, you're getting a right bloody pounding.
You're going at me because you know I've won. No. Bye, Tommy!
Coward. She's gone. Fantastic. Well, that was quite good fun, wasn't it? 08459 570057 is the number. You can text us on... That was super. 7786 2070 70.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.